Welcome to the Indie Opera Podcast.
Here we go. Welcome to the Indie Opera Podcast. This is Peter.
This is Ashley Renee.
This is Brooke.
This is Walker.
And we are joined by Texas native and international countertenor John Holliday, who has graced some of the world's most amazing halls from Singapore to Paris to NYC. Welcome him to our podcast. Some may know him from season 19 of NBC's The Voice. Woo! Where he was a top 5 finalist for some, or some may know him as Prof from the Conservatory of Music at Lawrence University, where he serves as Associate Professor of Voice. Welcome, John Holliday.
Hello, everyone.
Yay!
You messed that up.
I didn't mess it up.
Yeah, that was flawless.
I was really close to messing up.
It's all right.
It's so great to have you on the show. It's really exciting to have someone who is actually made a move to popular culture, which I think is really interesting. I want to delve into a little deeper. I also want to kind of say that it's really refreshing to have the narrative about opera for once be something completely different on one of these voice shows, because usually it's like some garage mechanic from Bayonne, New Jersey, who can squeak out Nessun Dorma and everyone's impressed, while we're sitting here going, oh my God, that's so tight and crazy. Do you know what I mean?
There's so many garage mechanics singing opera now.
You know what I mean? And it's
crazy.
like, what are you doing to my art form? And then here we have an opera singer coming in and just absolutely killing pop music, killing blues, killing everything. I mean, it's really great to turn that narrative on the head. So I'm really excited that you're doing that.
It's important to try to do those things and show people what the voice can do. So
yeah, and it's kind of amazing, actually. You listen to an opera singer, and periodically you get that moment where everything's right and the vibrato's perfectly in line and it's in pitch, and they just stretch and they know how to play with the voice, and tears fall down your eyes. But then you show up on like The Voice and you're doing it during like pop songs, and I'm like crying, going, oh my God, this is amazing. So
lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you.
It was just really just lovely to get to hear you sing.
I appreciate that The Voice did not try to obscure your history as a professional musician, which happens a lot on those shows. I've known people to go on those shows and then they act like they found them, like they were just playing in their band in their garage, when actually they're trained at the Boston Conservatory and have a degree in musical theater.
Yeah.
So I appreciate them for that too.
So you grew up in Texas, and opera's been something you've been interested in since you were really young?
I did. I grew up in Rosenberg, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston. Now, when I was growing up, it was considered the country, although you couldn't have told me that because I didn't believe it was a country. But grew up as a little country boy in Rosenberg, Texas, and I was in the boys choir, the Fort Bend Boys Choir of Texas, under the direction of Mr. William R. Adams, who is the founder and artistic director still to this day of that choir. And it was in that choir in 1997 that I saw Denyce Graves. She was singing the role of Marguerite in the, not the opera, but she was singing the Marguerite in Damnation of Faust with the Houston Symphony at Jones Hall in Houston, Texas. And I was the boy soloist who sang just a small little solo. It was just me singing the words Marguerite over and over again. But I was one of the boy soloists, and I became enamored by her and intrigued by everything that she was doing and so impressed with everything that she did and what she wore. And I'll never forget, I mean, everybody should have known I was a little gay kid then, but I remember asking her, I was like, oh my God, I love you so much. Can I see all of your dresses? And she let me go into her dressing room, and I saw all of her dresses and her shoes and everything. I was just enamored with her entire being. And to this day, I still think that she is extraordinary and exquisite in everything that she does. So yes, since that early age of about, let's say 10, 11, 12, around there, I became interested in opera and was really blessed to sing in a voice choir that gave me the opportunity to be exposed to the art form, because otherwise I would not have ever been exposed to it, or at least not at such an early age, because my family certainly did not listen to opera, but they do now. So, so that's the important part.
So did you get to actually continue to see operas and stuff when you were in Texas? Like, what was the local companies like?
Well, when I was a little kid, not so much, because like I said, my family wasn't so interested or invested, I should say, in opera, which is the absolute truth. But because I was in the boys choir, that was my introduction to classical singing. That was my introduction to the operatic realm of things of music. And so as a boy in the boys choir, we would sing, I remember we sang Carmina Burana, we sang Damnation of Faust, and we may have sung something else, but I'm not quite sure. But even in 1997, maybe it was 96, we went to California. But before that, we went to Mexico with the Houston Symphony on tour to sing Carmina Burana. And I just remember being thrilled by it then. And then going from that early age, I purposefully did not take choir in junior high school or middle school because I was in the boys choir. And I just didn't think that any school choir could beat the experiences that I was having in the boys choir. So I just said, no, I don't want to do that. I just want to take band. So I was in band 6th grade all the way through my graduation in high school.
What'd you
But
play?
in high school, I played the tenor saxophone.
All right.
And I was the drum major of my school. And I was the first African-American drum major at my high school. How about that?
All right.
But it was then that I became really invested in myself with choir in high school, because my voice changed out of the boys choir. And what it really was is that my voice, I was just becoming older and way too busy. So I got out of the boys choir and into the high school choir. So I was seeing musical theater things, not so much opera, when I was in high school. But the arts community in Houston is actually thriving. Houston and Dallas, which are the two cities that I'm most familiar with, have very, very good opera companies. But even San Antonio, even in Austin and things like that.
And Fort
So
Worth.
I've been really privileged. Yeah, Fort Worth Opera. In fact, I'm going to be doing something with them in a subsequent season. I'll tell you about it when I can. But I think the arts in Texas are thriving. And I don't know a singer from Texas who is not a singer who is filled with passion, wonderful technique, a good voice, and an appreciation for not just singing the notes on the page, but making a connection with the heart space. I think Texas has a lot of great artists that have come from there, and I'm just lucky to be one of them.
Yeah, I actually did a little stint with El Paso Opera. I don't know if they're still around, but I fell absolutely in love with Texas. So what was the first actual full role like? Did you sing? Have you sung a full role? What was the first full role you sang?
I've sung many, many, many full roles by this point. You know, I'm 35 years old now.
Right. But what was the first one?
The very first role that I ever sang that was full was, well, if we want to be completely honest, when I was at an undergrad at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas, they didn't program anything that I could sing. But there was a little bitty role in not the Elixir, in Gianni Schicchi, Gherardino. I sang that. But that doesn't really count. You know, when I think about it, that literally is that one line, Gianni Schicchi. That's all I sang. That's it. So no, but really my first full role was the role of Tolomeo in Julius Caesar. And I did that at the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. And while I was in school, I was an apprentice artist at the Santa Fe Opera. And I learned the role of Corrado in Griselda by Vivaldi. That was my first Vivaldi opera, and I covered that. And then subsequently, I was hired to sing my very first professional role oh my goodness, there are two roles because it's the opera by Philip Glass, Galileo Galilei.
Yeah, I saw that.
And,
Yeah.
and I sang like the Inquisitor,
Uh-huh.
and I've forgotten at this point what they were, but they were two roles that I sang, and that was fun. So I've sung lots of roles by now, but
So
those
is
are my
Baroque,
two first full roles.
is that where your heart is at? And as far as opera, is it the Baroque, the Vivaldi stuff, or what is what do you want to sing?
I want to sing everything. Anybody who really knows me, I mean, Brooke is really a dear friend of mine, so she knows I'm like absolutely telling the truth. I mean, I want to sing everything. If I can sing it, I feel like why not sing it? And so I wouldn't say that my heart is just Baroque. I mean, I think it's easy to say that because I'm a countertenor, and of course, we specialize in Baroque music. I do sing a lot of that music. However, I also sing lots of modern music, and I love that music as well. But even outside of opera, I really love my roots, or as Leontine would say, my roots are in gospel music. That's what I grew up singing and playing in the church. I grew up as a missionary Baptist kid around my grandmother, and I wanted to be exactly like Big Mama. And Big Mama was a phenomenal singer and a phenomenal pianist. So I wanted to be just like her. And I learned how to play the piano, and I subsequently played the piano for my church. Then she made me, once I figured out how to play the piano, she made me learn how to play the Hammond B3. So I learned how to play the organ too. So I was doing all of that. But I just want to sing, Peter. I love music. And I strongly feel that our jobs as human beings are to leave the world a better place than what we found it. And one of the ways that I can do that is by singing. And I love people so much that I am really inspired by what we can all do when we think about the good of us all. And music is something that helps to unite us. No matter what color you are, no matter what socioeconomic status you have, no matter your sexuality, music brings us all together. No matter your political stance, music can bring us together because it is a universal language. So I don't care if it's Baroque, Romantic, post, whatever you want to call it. I just want to sing. In fact, I just did a wonderful brand new work by Tyshawn Sorey called Save the Boys with Opera Philadelphia that will premiere on February the 12th. And it is absolutely modern and still so beautiful and just as poignant. Those words are so touching. So yeah, I can talk forever, by the way.
No, it's good.
I don't know if I
Don't stop.
so,
Some don't.
I want to know more about the Opera Philadelphia thing. So what's it about? And tell us just a little, sort of put a frame around it for us.
the title says it all, Save the Boys. It was written by an abolitionist poet, and she was incredible in the many facets that a writer can be. I think that when you think of great poets, they take the circumstances in which they find themselves and the world, and they write about it. Maya Angelou used to say that words are things, and that if you ball your fist up and you throw them, they stick to the wall. And what was really wonderful about these words is that they were touching and so incredibly moving. And it really is a piece about saving the boys. Yes, the poet is Frances Ellen Watkins.
Frances Ellis Watkins Harper.
Yes, that's
Got
right.
4 names.
And she's important, and she deserves 5 or 6. I mean, that's how important. Those words are incredible. Just the way in which she spoke about saving the men of our generation. And I will go a step further and say that she didn't just mean save the boys. I know that she meant save the girls, save the boys, save us all from all of the things that society tends to put on us, all of the things that people seem to feel that they have the right to tell us that we should and shouldn't do. And especially for little Black and brown boys and girls, how important it is to stand in your authentic truth and to know that you are more than a conqueror. I just felt so empowered by singing the words. Like I said, I wish I could remember them all right now. Of course, I cannot, because I have been so busy doing a lot of really wonderful things. And that was one of the wonderful things that I got to do for about 3 or 4 days with Philadelphia, which has become like one of my operatic homes.
So we're going to try and get this show up before on February 1st. And this
Great.
is premiering February 12th at 8 p.m.
Yes.
And it's going to be up for a few weeks, I think. And it's a fundraiser for Opera Philadelphia. And if you don't know about Opera Philadelphia, you haven't been listening to our show. Because we talk about them a lot. They've been very innovative. Now I'm curious about Tyshawn Sorey. Did you actually get to work with him, or is it like, here's a score, and like how closely did you collaborate with him?
Totally. Tyshawn was there when we were doing the recording and the work, not even the workshop. I this is not to toot my own horn. I'm not a pretentious person at all. At least I don't think so. But I showed up, and I remember being really afraid. I'm rarely afraid of music, but I remember coming into it thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to do this, because Tyshawn writes incredibly beautiful music, but it is incredibly complex too. And it can be it can be very atonal. It can be chromatic. And it is all of those things. But it is also, and I think it's because I just love new music. I call myself a champion. I'm a champion of new music. And I really do think I am, but I love it so much that I don't want to ever do a disservice to the music. And so I come into a situation in which I'm learning new music very prepared, but always thinking that I'm not going to be as prepared as I think I am. But Grant Lernick, who is also our Lernick, is also there and really did help to prepare me in the rehearsals. Tyshawn wrote this work for Grant and me.
He's the pianist.
And in doing so, yes, Grant is the pianist. And in doing so, I got to the rehearsal on the very first day, and Grant told me, he was like, you are incredibly prepared. Like, we could go and do the recording tomorrow. And I was really shocked. But when Tyshawn got there, he was like, yep, I'm ready to record. And I was like so shocked, because I thought that I was going to sound terrible and it was going to be bad. And it absolutely is a gorgeous piece. And Tyshawn is incredible. We talked a bit. I had gone into Philadelphia maybe February or March of 2000, and I guess it was 2019 at this point. He and I got together, and he listened to me sing, listened to a lot of my repertoire. And from there, he got a good sense of what my voice could do, or so he thought. And so he wrote this beautiful music, and this beautiful music is exactly what I can do. And of course, I add a little jazz inflections in there, because that's something that I think is important. And it's something that we need to investigate more in the 21st century of music, is that we are all, as artists, being required to be able to have the versatility enough to understand improvisation and the jazz idiomatic language in a way that we can add it to music, should a composer require it or suggest it in their work. So he didn't suggest it, but he just wanted me to sing it my way, and I said, okay. So that's what I did.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting you bring up this sort of pop opera crossover idea. Not every, I'm not going to name names, but not every opera singer can cross over. Recently, there have been some really bad examples of opera singers. We will not name names. Brooke, I see a smile on your face. I see a smile.
We're not going to name any names.
Yeah.
Don't you do it. I am not going to be a part of it.
Yes, certain Christmas albums or whatever. Anyway,
maybe.
Maybe, but not everyone can cross over, and it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. The idea of throwing that into being part of performance.
Yeah.
It's really lovely to see that you're comfortable with that. Is that something? I mean, if you had your druthers, because you're so good at both. Are you going to keep going back and forth, or if you could have like some major career in one or the other, where you
I don't even consider it going. I don't even consider it going back and forth. And this is not what you said. I don't mean to make these your words.
It's fine. Make fun of me.
Someone the other day. No, I'm not gonna make fun of you because that's not nice. And I'm a nice person. The other day, someone, and as I say, this is not what you're saying, but it's in a similar way. Let's go back and forth.
Don't sugarcoat it, guy.
Saying to me, I'm just gonna say it. Someone said to me, what are you gonna do when you're recording your serious music? And I thought to myself, what does that mean?
Yeah.
To me, all music is serious music. And I grew up singing gospel music. So to me, that could be serious music. I grew up hearing R&B music and soul music. That could be serious music. All music is serious. One music is not, in my opinion, and this is not what you're saying. So I'm saying
I'm not saying.
But I want to, yeah, I know. That's why I wanted to preface it by saying that, because I have been asked this quite a bit in different ways. To me, all music is so beautiful, and it's a part of who I am. And when I think about music from the jazz greats and the R&B greats and the soul greats like Stevie Wonder, Ella Fitzgerald, Mel Torme, Sarah Vaughan, who else? I mean, I could just go on and on. Nina Simone, who is one of my favorite singers. I mean, that music is serious and beautiful. And to me, even if we add the serious aspect of, when people add the word serious, I'm like, that perpetuates the idea that that there is an elitism to music. And so for me, one of the goals I've always had in my life as a singer, an African-American, gay, Black singer, is that I've always wanted to demystify that music is elite. Because I don't think that music is elite. I think that music is a birthright. I think that everyone is entitled to good music. As I said earlier, whether you're poor or rich, you're Black, white, purple, green, you're Republican, Green Party, Independent, Democrat, cisgender, transgender, I don't care. You deserve, I think you're worthy of good music simply because you were born. And so for me, one of my goals, as I said, has been to demystify that aspect of it. So yes, and a long answer, I will go back and forth between music that I find beautiful. Music has to be beautiful to me in order for me to sing it. Music has to have a message. And I, more than ever, am now aware, which I was aware before. Like I said, all my friends would know this about me. I know that my platform is a platform where I get to use my voice, and I won't ever take that for granted. And so whenever there is music that has a message to it, that is aligned with my message, I will sing it, whether it is popular or not. And I always tell people, I sing Strange Fruit and people love it, but it is not always welcomed by everybody. But it is a piece that means a lot to me. And sadly, it will always be poignant because of the environment in which we live and the times in which we live. It will always be poignant. So I will always sing it. I always talk about me singing Ombra Mai Fu because of it being this powerful, strong tree that provided shade. Well, there's another tree that isn't, that doesn't represent that same strength. It represented a lot of depth and ignorance and things like that I think is important to talk about because of the platform that I have, and especially being an African American artist. I think Nina Simone said it best, that an artist's job is to be a reflection of the time. So if that means I have to go back and forth between classical singing to jazz singing to gospel singing to halo, then that's what I'll do. Because I find such joy in it, and I think it's my responsibility.
Has your message, has that always been your message as you see it in terms of, as your life as a singer, or has your mission or your message changed over time?
My mission, I think, I get chills when you talk. Everybody on the show used to laugh at me when I would say that. Tamara Jade, who was on the show with me in The Voice, I would say, I get chills when I think about things like that, because it is true. Anyone who knows me, our dearest friends, Trevor Bryce is one of them, Brooke, we always have hung out. Like, these are people who know, like, I have been like this since day one, unafraid to be myself. I could not step in, and this is one of the reasons, even when I was talking to the producers of The Voice, I cannot step onto any stage and be something other than John Thomas Holliday Jr. And when I am myself, I bring all of me to the table. And because I have had moments in my life where I have been made fun of for being the young little gay Black kid who sang high, I have been spit on by people before. I cannot bring all of those past experiences to the stage and be afraid of the message that I have. And so, yes, I've always had that message. The difference now, Walker, is that my platform has gotten larger. So now more people get to see it, which is also a joy. And Lord knows, I hope I keep those people in my corner. But the most important thing with which I have to concern myself is going to bed at night and being comfortable with what I have done and what I have said. And so, yes, it has always been a goal of mine to talk about Black excellence, because I believe that I'm lucky to be a part of that. But I also think that my job, since I am in this industry and in my career now, is as I climb up, my job is to lift others up, and that's what I plan to do. By hook or by crook, as Nina Simone would say, I'm going to do what I can to uplift others, and I especially want to be a good example to my brothers and sisters. And I mean that not just my Black brothers and sisters, but all of you. You're all my brothers and sisters, and I want to be a good example. And I promised God when I was a little boy, I said, God, if you allow me to sing and you continue to give me the gift of music, I promise you, Lord, that I'll be a good steward of the gift. And that's my goal in my life, is to be a good steward of this gift.
Do you feel like you're do you feel like you're treated differently, like in a classical music setting versus like a jazz or pop or gospel music setting? Do you feel like you're treated differently as a Black singer?
I do not feel that I am treated differently in that respect. I do know of many of my colleagues who are not at the same level that I am, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but just a true way, is that there are younger artists who are in my industry who experience several setbacks, some of them whom I'm lucky enough to mentor. And certainly there are times that I'm certain I have been talked about in the terms of being a Black singer and this not being appropriate for a Black singer. Do I know that? No. But do I not know it? No. So you understand what I'm saying? I'm certain that there have been conversations in which race is an issue. Luckily, I have not been in the room, because I don't know what I would say. I don't know what I would say in those instances, because I'm very outspoken in terms of justice and equality and casting and things like that. But I will say that I've always been taught, and this is something that a lot of young African American boys and girls are taught, that I have to be 2 times, in my case 3 times as good as my white counterparts in order to get casted sometimes, to get cast in roles. And that's something that has always been in the back of my mind, and something I'm not ashamed of saying. It's something that most African American people who are in this industry have heard. But I have also been very, very appreciated in my art form. I've also been very loved. And I know that too. from so many people not even thinking about my color. But I will say, you know, when you see me, you see a Black man. That's who you see. A Black man is in front of you singing, and I'm proud of that. I don't think of it when I'm singing. I don't. I just think about the music, and I think of trying to convey the message that I believe is meant to be conveyed through the music, whether it be Vivaldi or whether it be Halo.
Of course, the irony is that you're on The Voice, where they were judging you with their chairs turned, and they heard a voice that had no gender or color.
Yeah,
actually, and they chose, you know, whether to turn around. And I just love, I mean, the moment where who's it? I don't remember which judge, but she turned around and the look of shock on her face.
Kelly.
Yes, when Kelly saw you, just the look on her face was like, what?
Holding your hand. You can say that you're leading me on, but it's just what I want you to do. Can't you see how hopelessly lost? That's why I'm following I'm too misty, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that you're saying that when you became famous on the show, where you're completely being judged purely by the sound, you know?
Yes. Isn't that a beautiful thing?
Yeah.
You know?
Ashley, you were going to say something. We cut you
Yeah,
off.
sure. I know I'm in the shadows over here, but I just love hearing you talk about your mentors and how Denyce Graves impacted you in that moment. But I'd love to know, like, even before that, who were some figures like in your life that granted you this permission that, or not even granted you, but gave you full access to the entirety of yourself?
I am lucky enough that I live in a family. I was brought up in a family that God gifted me with my mother and my grandmother, who really encouraged me to be everything that I am today. I hear so many of my colleagues and friends in this industry sometimes say that their parents were not supportive, and that always shocks me because I just think about how fantastic everyone is in their own way, how unique we all are. And never it never dawned on me that I was really lucky that I grew up with my mother and my grandmother really encouraging me. The most that I ever got into trouble or, you know, admonished, you know, about something, or chastised, as we would say growing up, about something, was that I'm a night owl. And still to this day, I had to buy a house once because I used to practice so much in an apartment that my neighbor underneath me would do the broomstick on his roof and my floor to make me stop singing. But I would practice until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And my mother, her job started at 6:30 in the morning, so she had to be up at 5:30. And she would get on to me when I was in high school about, okay, John, you get the song now, you know it, go to bed. But other than that, I never got in trouble, and I was always encouraged. And my mother really, really, really encouraged me, and my grandmother really, really encouraged me. As I said, she was a person that I wanted to be like. So those are, and my Aunt Brenda. I mean, there was not a person in my family that I can think of that really did not help to propel me forward. And even my community in which I grew up, I often talk about the village and the villagers lifting a villager up more than the villager thought was possible. That villager was me. I could have never imagined this yellow brick road of blessings that have come my way. But I think that all the people who helped to mentor me, they saw it in me first. I could feel it. I always felt really special, Ashley Renee, that God had given me a gift of music. And I knew that it was important to share it, but I never knew how far I would go. And I think that that's the blessing of being young and naive, not really knowing how talented you are, and not buying too much into the hoopla of it, but just doing the work. And I think sometimes that's the noise that Leontine Price talked about. You know, not being so drawn to that, but being drawn to what it is you know that you are meant to do in this world. And so I was lucky to have my mom and my grandmother and my father and my stepmom, my Aunt Brenda, my whole family, my sister, you know, my brothers. I mean, I'm lucky. And my hope in life is that I can be a sweet inspiration to other young boys and girls out there, young boys and girls who are singing. And I'm lucky that every now and then I get a message from one or two of them saying that I have done so. And it is the best gift that anyone could ever give me.
Right. And how do you nurture the genres? Like, and I say this as someone who I identify with totally what you're saying. So, but I'm still curious because I remember when I started in voice, they were like, you got to stop singing everything else and
Yeah,
just
I don't subscribe. I don't subscribe to that, and I don't tell my
Right.
students that. You know, and it's something that I think is so important because actually, Renee, what they were in essence doing, and they don't know it because they don't mean to do this. But when someone says that to a singer, and especially a singer of color, especially an African American singer, or a singer who comes from really diverse backgrounds, is you're telling that singer, I don't want all of you. I
Yeah.
just want this one part of you. And so to answer your question, for me, I literally just had this conversation last night with Jackie Clark Chisholm, who is one of the Clark sisters. I was visiting with her last night in her home. And I'll give you guys a little insight into the final week of The Voice. I was tasked to sing Halo. It was not my choice to sing Halo. And it was actually quite difficult for me to sing. And I remember I got really upset and I was like, I can't sing this song. I don't know how I'm going to sing it. And I love Beyonce and I don't want to make her upset. I don't want to make the Beehive like crazy mad at me, but I can't sing this song. And John was like, well, you're going to do it and you can sing it. I can't imagine anybody singing it but you. And there was the night before the finale, I realized I had, instead of being gracious, and what I normally ask God, I always ask God, let me back up a little bit. I always ask God before I sing anything for him to send his angels to sing through me. Because what I am really aware of is the fact that music has saved me. Music was always my sanctuary. It was the thing that brought me so much joy, peace, and love. And it's where I knew I fit in. And when people would make fun of me, I'd come home and I'd sing to my little black Labrador. Her name was Sassy. And I would take Sassy outside to the back patio at my mom's townhouse on Avenue O in Rosenberg. She doesn't live there anymore. And I would just sing to Sassy until I felt better. And what I recognized I was doing in those moments, Ashley Renee, is that I was surrendering to the music. And so for me, whenever I am singing any music, whether it be classical, Vivaldi's Cato and Utica, or Vivaldi's whatever, or Handel's Xerxes, or Julius Caesar, or Tyshawn Sori's music, or Daniel Bernard Roumain's music, or Huang Ruo's music, I have to surrender to the music in order to do it, and to do it justice, and to allow, as Bill T. Jones would say, I have to surrender, as he would say, to let the gods into the room. And so that's what I do in every single genre of music. I surrender to the music and let the music speak, because I can't sing it unless I surrender. And so what I recognized before the finale, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've been so angry and so fearful that I forgot to surrender. And the moment that I remembered to surrender, I was fine. I didn't sing it like Beyonce, but I sang it like John Holiday. And that's always been what I do. So now that I recognize that, and it's been throughout this process of The Voice, that I can say that I can put a name to it. But I just love that song. I surrender all. I surrender all to be my blessed Savior. I surrender all. everything I do, I have to surrender. And as long as I surrender, I'm all right. So that's how I do all the genres. I surrender to it.
So you brought up something interesting, and we don't have to go too deep in this if it's weird. But being on The Voice, you're very managed, and they choose what songs and stuff. It must be a very difficult process. How much say do you have in I mean, it's so produced. It was so wonderful, the lights coming out of the floor and you playing the piano.
Isn't it fantastic?
Yeah. But how managed are you? Is it do you feel tight-fisted, or were you
I did not. It was only that the final week. Everything else was fantastic. And even the finale week was great. When you go onto these shows, you are telling them all the songs that you could see that work best for you, that you might want to sing. So you list all of these wonderful songs that you've either sung or that you wanted to sing. I never really listed the Beyonce. And so everything up until the finale week, I was really, really happy with singing. And I was even happy to sing Halo after I did it. Because what it taught me, that was the real moment in where I felt stretched, because I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to sing this song well. I'm not going to be able to do it. I can't do it. But then I was able to do it. And it was then that I thought, you know what, this show really did teach me something, that you really can, Holiday, sing anything. You know, it was in that moment that I thought I can sing anything. And not to be pretentious or egotistical, but it was just, to me, at that point, a matter of fact. Like, I did not think it was possible for me to do Halo. And I did it as best as I could. Was it perfect? No, but it was perfect for that night. It was as best as I could do it. So I didn't feel managed. I didn't feel tight-fisted. I felt very loved. I was very supported. John Legend is an incredible person. He believes so much in me. In fact, I was talking to him last week via email. So this is somebody with whom now I have a relationship that I can talk to, I can call. So I didn't feel managed. I felt very supported, and I felt very uplifted. They really believed in me, so much so they kept calling me The Voice. You know, they thought probably that I was going to win, but it is up to America to vote. So America had other choices, and they chose that, and I'm okay with it.
So now, when you choose when the mentor, I saw the process. It's sort of you choose them.
Yeah.
So when you choose someone, what exactly does the mentor do for? I mean, how much contact did you actually have with Mr. Legend?
I was in contact with him every week, sometimes twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. I mean, what you saw on TV, there's actually more time than that we spend with them, because of course that's dwindled down into like 10 minutes. But there at least 2 or 3 hours a week, with him, and just the encouragement of delving more into the stylistic things. Sometimes offering vocal tips, although John would tell me all the time, he's like, vocally, there's nothing I can tell you to do with your voice. Like, you know what to do with your voice, but let's talk about style. Let's talk about leaning more into the uniqueness of who you are, about being unapologetically John Holiday. Let's do that. And it's interesting to me because it's something that I always talk to my students about, but in the moment of being in all the hoopla, you forget those things, and you try to sometimes like, well, I haven't shown the low part of my voice. Maybe I should do that. And I remember the first time I did that, John was like, don't do that. He's like, that's not who you really are. Yes, you can do it and you do it well, but America wants to hear you sing up here. They want to hear you soar. And so, yeah, I've had so much interaction with him, and so much so that it really has blossomed into a wonderful friendship. He's such a wonderful guy, and has encouraged me. We were talking the other day. We were talking while I was in Philadelphia doing Save the Boys. And I was talking to him about coming to see him in August and just hanging out. And he's like, yeah, whenever you get, just let me know. So that's the kind of relationship that I have now with John Legend. Right. Whereas I could have never before imagined that my name would even be in the same sentence as his. In a way, now it's almost synonymous with John. And I know him, and I've had moments where I've sung with him. In my wildest dreams, I could have never imagined it. I had written it down, though, because I'm a person who believes in writing down your visions and your dreams. So I had written it down before. Now I can say I've done it.
It's funny. I don't want to disagree with the legend, but you sound great down there. Give me a break.
Yeah, it was fun.
Frankly, when you went down, especially like the first time you were on the show, and that they weren't even facing you. Then you went down and then went up. That was the moment that sold your voice to.
Well, that was the moment where I thought that I would show them, because I know people, just because I know that's the countertenor voice, they're thinking that I'm a female singer or a treble voiced singer. And I wanted to show the non-treble aspect of my singing. And so I thought, as soon as I do that, somebody will turn around and be like, "Oh my God, it's a man."
They did.
And that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, you got to think about these things in a strategic way too. How do you work strategy, and how do you show who you are in every single aspect of the authenticity of who you are? And that was one of the ways in which I got to do that.
Can you talk a little bit about the simultaneously holding on to your whole self while also surrendering? Because I feel like, I sing too, and I think about those two things and how difficult, like I've struggled personally with like being myself on stage and also surrendering to the music.
Yeah, that's a good question, Brooke. Fear is a real thing. Fear is the thing that stops us. The amygdala is the center of fight or flight in the brain, right? And so a lot of times we will fly instead of fighting because of fear. And that even has to do with being ourselves, because of the way that we're conditioned, I think, in our society, to think that one of the two words that I hated growing up was weird and like, that's odd. Instead of being weird and odd, what about you being unique? What about leaning into those differences that make you completely unique from anybody else? And so I started working with a life coach about 4 years ago, maybe. And I've learned so much from her. Her name is Linda Bucher. And I think that everyone should know Linda, and everyone should work with her, because she's really helped to encourage me. And so what I learned from that, and this is also something I learned from Brene, I think her name is Brene Brown, and she's from Houston. She's one of the thought leaders of our time, with whom
I'm listening to her right now too. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, see, I've never had the privilege of meeting her, but hopefully one day I will. But she's someone whose work I have been paying a lot of attention to. Ayanna Van Zandt is another person. But Brene always says that fear is worthy of a seat. She says deserves. I try to stay away from the word deserves, because I don't think anybody deserves anything, but we are all worthy of things. We are all worthy simply because we're born. But anyway, she says that fear is worthy of a seat in your audience. But out of an audience of 1,000 seats, fear deserves one. It deserves one seat. Because sometimes that fear, or knowing that it's there, it propels you forward more into who you are. And fear, in a way, can make you do some things that are really, really great and really outstanding. So out of that 1,000-seat auditorium, if fear has one seat, guess who has more seats? Love, joy, abundance, peace, excitement, joy. I mean, I just can go on and on with all those things. So because I recognize that all those other things deserve a seat, they're worthy of a seat, it allows me to know that all those things exist inside of me. And if I can propel those things forward to my audience, then those are the things that will take the seat rather than fear. And so I recognize that in order to be yourself, it takes a hell of a lot of guts to be on a stage and to stand naked, emotionally, in front of people and be yourself. But what a beautiful thing to do. What a beautiful thing to say, here I am, take me as I am. You can take me or leave me, but hopefully you'll take me. But if you don't take me, guess what? I'm still here. And so I can surrender knowing that I am happy. Jennifer Lewis said this Jennifer Lewis is a very, very famous A-list Black actress. And I think she plays on Blackish and lots of other things. I know her from many, many films. One of my favorite films she was ever in was called What's Love Got to Do with It? But one day she said to people in the audience, she said, the elevator to success is broken. Take the stairs. And that took a lot. I took that to heart. Then she said something else to people. She says, you are the lone person at the end of the night, whether you have a person in the limousine with you or not, because actually, those of us who sing a lot on the road, we know that most times we're by ourselves. And you're the person who has to be comfortable with yourself at the end of the night when you're in the back of that limousine with the partition rolled up. And when you get to the hotel, you have to go to bed with yourself at night, knowing that you are happy with what you did. That's why whenever I sing on the stage, I am myself 100%. The way I'm talking to you right now is the way I talk to my audience. Brooke has been in an audience when I have sung, and she knows this is exactly who I am. I could not be anything else but John Thomas Holiday Jr. And I'm lucky to have been raised in a family where my family encouraged that. My grandmother would always tell me, don't be anybody else but you, John. And she calls me Johnny M. Only she calls me that. But don't be anybody else. And I think I hate, I'm such a nerd, so you probably know this by now, but I hate to reference all these people but I always do. Marianne Williamson's quote, her poem of What is Our Greatest Fear, is the quintessential reasoning behind being unafraid of being yourself, Brooke. Because what she says in there is when you unconsciously let when you let your own light shine, you unconsciously give someone else permission to do the same. And so I hope that in my being my authentic self, that I give, and I'm looking at her right now, even though she's not there, and she's an African American person. I hope that I'm giving Ashley Renee the permission to be herself. But I know that in giving her permission, that I'm giving you permission, Brooke, that I'm giving John Smith in Indiana permission to be the same. I'm giving Sarah Miller in San Diego permission to be, herself. I want to be a good steward of the gift, and that's just not the voice, but it's telling people how to let your light shine. And I'm a big proponent of that. I even sing that song in my shows all the time, This Little Light of Mine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm going to let it shine. And I'm unafraid to do so because I know that me being unafraid gives you permission to do the same.
Amen to that.
Yes.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm expecting a little number to come across. Donate at 1-800.
No.
It's so inspiring.
I hope that it is inspiring because I think that that's our job I don't want to ever be one of those artists that you can't get a hold of. I don't want to ever be one of those artists with whom you can't speak. It may take some time to get to speak to me, maybe at some point, but I don't want to ever be inaccessible. I want to be accessible because I'm one of you. I am the little boy who's constantly made fun of. I am the little boy who used to dress in Western wear T-shirts with shorts on and cowboy boots. I am that little kid. And so it is important to me to be an inspiration because Oprah used to always say, back to somebody else, what good is it to have something? What good is it to have a wonderful gift or something nice if you can't share it? I want to share everything, if I can, everything I have with everybody else. But I've also learned in my 35 years of life that the other party has to be open to it. So if you're open to receiving the gift or the words that I have to give, then I want to share them with you.
I was going to actually zoom out and talk about opera as an art form and the industry in general, which is, as we're all sort of having a reckoning, right? I mean, everybody's going through a reckoning. The opera industry in particular is going through a reckoning because we can't do anything in COVID, right? I mean, and we won't be able to do anything in COVID. And there's the Met musicians who are in battle with Met administration, it's terrible, these things that are happening. But there's also a lot of existential real reflection happening. I sat in actually on an Opera America. I've been on so many Opera America webinars about recovery and what part of what they were talking about was COVID protocols, and then part of what they were talking about is how the arts, how opera in particular, but the arts in general, can be part of the healing process. And I wonder if you have thoughts as a professional and who's worked at opera companies all over the world, where opera leadership, where opera leaders can leverage their positions of authority in the field to make things better for everybody, which is sort of, I think, what people are wrestling with right now.
It's hard because I mean, of course, I wish I knew the answer to everything. I don't know. I like to say I'm really smart. Sometimes I don't know. but in instances like this, I try to get still and quiet and listen to the beat, per se, the beat being, what are people saying? What are the musicians saying? And I know that a lot of people are struggling right now. You talk about famous artists and musicians are really struggling because of some egregious things that are happening at the at the top of the album. I won't say names of any person because one day I have to work at these places. Right. But it's not all their fault either. I mean, I think it is, some of the things that we're seeing right now have been years in the making, and our job as artists at the highest of the level, like I said earlier, is as we are climbing up to lift up others. And I oftentimes think that people forget about that. It's all about them. And I get it. You got to make a check. You got a family. You got bills to pay. I get it. Trust me. But in doing so, how can you uplift others? How can you make sure that others are being treated fairly and equally, especially when in terms of pay? And I say that knowing sometimes I'm probably not the most well-paid person in the room, but I am someone who is well aware of the privilege that I have and the things that I can do. And one of the very first things I think is really important is for us to have diversity in every sense of the word. I'm talking about racial diversity, the diversity of sex. And when I say that, I mean men and women, whether transgender or cisgender. I think it would be great to see more of that in our industry. On my team, I have to say I have some really amazing people. I have a team that is mixed completely. And I mean my personal team is mixed with women, men, gay, straight, black, white, Asian, Hispanic. I mean, they're everyone on my group, and I love it. And I think that needs to be, that's got to be at the forefront of these people's minds when they're making these decisions about who they want to employ and who they envision reaching. Because oftentimes you hear that that's the thing, like, oh, the audience is not diverse. Well, if you give the audience what they want, they show up. It's happened in my life. I remember I did a recital at the Dallas Opera in 2019. And I've always wanted to do this. Basically, my audience was 75% African American, and it floored me. I cried talking to them. I mean, it doesn't take much to get me to cry, but I cried because I was just so grateful to have seen that energy ushered into that space in the Dallas Opera. But I think that there is a reckoning that is happening right now. My only hope is that it continues past COVID. That it continues post-COVID, because it's all well and good. You can say a lot of things during COVID. Well, we're going to hire these women. We're going to hire these men. We're going to hire these Black crew and staff. We're going to hire these Asian crew and staff. We're going to hire these Asian administrators or these Black administrators, these conductors and directors. I just want it to last. That's my thing. It's just my prayer is that it continues to last, because I think that everybody is extraordinary, especially those people who have been elevated during this time. And my prayer is that it just continues to happen. I don't know the answer, Brooke. I wish I did. I just know that it takes artists who are unafraid of being themselves and who want to lift others up and who are not just in it for themselves, because ultimately that's being selfish. And there is a certain part of us, I guess, that has to be selfish, but most importantly, we have to think about how we lift other people up in this art form. And until we get to that place, we will always struggle. And there will always be that push and pull, the tug of war. And I hope that answers your question. I don't know if I did a good job or not.
I think that's a really wonderful answer. I mean, no one has the whole answer. I think it's a lot of different ideas, but the idea that, elevating everybody, and meaning, artists and audiences and administrators and, whoever they are, whatever their background is, obviously should be central. I mean, what is the point of art if it's not for everyone?
It's one of the things I love about Opera Philadelphia, and Opera Philadelphia and the Glimmer Glass Opera. I have never been to so many, and I'm sure there are other companies that do that. I have not had the privilege of working with many opera companies that are on the large. I mean, I have, but like making debuts. Like I'm set to make my Metropolitan Opera debut, and I'm gonna make my Dallas Opera debut, and probably make my Chicago Lyric Opera debut in 2023. I've been working on that right now. And Los Angeles Opera, I have sung there. And these are companies, especially Opera Philadelphia and Glimmer Glass. And like I said, there are many others with whom I have not had the privilege of working with yet. But they specifically, I don't know if it's a charge for their company or what, but like they really try to champion diversity. They don't try, they do. Like Opera Philadelphia is on it. And I think that other people should talk to David Devan and Sarah Williams and Michael Eberhard about what they are doing there, because I don't think, this is another thing, because even honestly, I get afraid saying, Opera Philadelphia and Glimmer Glass too, because I know that some companies will be like, oh, he didn't mention me. And there is this thing that I'm going to say right now that has not ever been said, or maybe it has been. There is some kind of thing about opera companies, and it's not just opera companies, singers, we do it to each other. If there's somebody else who is just as good, you get, oh, well, I'm better than them. Why is there not enough room at the table for every opera company to be good, or every opera company to be diverse? So I don't mean that as, so when I talk about Opera Philadelphia and Glimmer Glass, I'm not saying that there are not other companies who don't do that. I just don't specifically know it. So before anybody gets up in airs about that, I'm not saying that I don't know that anybody else doesn't do it. I'm just saying I have worked with these companies in works that have been diverse. So let me say that. I definitely want to work with all of you, and I want to bring diversity to your opera company. But more than that, I don't want to just come to you for diversity's sake. I want to come to you because I'm the best thing that you could see, in that role. But it's something that I talk about with my students that, oftentimes, and it usually happens with higher voices, and I'm like, why isn't it okay for your colleague to be just as good as you are? Why isn't there enough room at the table for your colleague to be as good? And so when I teach my students, I always say, if you feel like someone isn't as good, help them to be as good, and then pull out the leaf, put the leaf on the table and add another chair. That's why I'm saying learn from Opera Philadelphia and what they're doing, because until the day that I die, I'm going to hopefully be learning. And even when I do die, although I hope it's far from now, I'm going to be learning how to be in heaven. And I believe that we are always being taught. We're taught from a baby how to continue to live our life. I was just around a lot of babies this weekend, and I was learning even things about breathing just from the babies by watching them breathe. And I think it's really important for opera companies to learn from one another and to take information. So if one company is doing something that's really great, why not have some other companies look and say, like, you know what, you're doing this thing, you're championing this thing really great. How can I do that? Can you teach me? How much greater would the world be if we all learned from one another? Yeah. So I'm sorry, that was a tangent. You may
was great.
I don't know, but
I think the opera industry is so long traded in being exclusive. And that's been the currency of opera for a very long time, which I've never, that's been one of my biggest struggles in being a part of the industry is that idea that it's somehow not for everyone. I mean, not everybody likes opera, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's for anyone who wants to come, and it should always be that. And the fact that we aren't hospitable as an industry. I hope it's getting better, but generally speaking, as an industry, are not hospitable to people who aren't already part of the traditional audiences, whatever that is. So,
but Brooke, I just want to say, I mean, I've worked with a lot of opera companies, small though. I have not worked with those who shall not be named. But whenever I've worked at an opera company, you meet these artists, all of them. None of them. I've not worked with an artist who has been exclusionary and felt that it was an elite thing. And I've never met an opera singer said that.
Artist.
Yeah, ever.
It's about perception. It's about the perception of it. It's perceived to be. So that means that the work falls on us to do the work.
But the thing is that the problem was the management, in order to make money, was to sell it as an exclusive product so they could hike up prices. I mean, I get that. But on the artist level, it has always been sort of an open door.
I don't think that artists by and large, I mean, there are exceptions prove the rule. I think artists by and large are just happy to have anybody listen to them.
Exactly.
You know, it's more that the industry trades in exclusivity, not that the individual artist or any even necessarily individual person personally is exclusive. It's that we have this, it's a tool that we've used. I think it's an ugly tool. I think we should abandon this tool, but it is a thing that we've used in order to cultivate whatever mystique. I'm not even sure, but it's not, it's something that I wish, my frustration, and I will name the opera company, my frustration with the Metropolitan Opera during COVID has been the fact that rather than sort of taking an opportunity to be more open and accessible and inclusive, they've doubled down on exclusivity by creating, you know, events in Germany using artists that are not theirs to create this very like formal, it feels not of the time, it feels inappropriate. And that is very frustrating to me, because they are still the house that everybody looks to, even if, you know, we personally are not reverent of them. The world is reverent of them, and that's not how I want my art form to be represented. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an odd moment we're in. Also, historically, you know, opera companies, there've been lots of civic opera companies, but, you know, not a lot of them have been sort of trafficking in that as well. It's really just, opera company that shall not be mentioned.
I just mentioned it. I'll take it on. That's fine.
Brooke will say it. Just
like I watch their stuff. I bought tickets to their shows. Like, it's not.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
But you know, I don't like how they've handled this moment. Right. And I'm going to say so.
So speaking of those that have been mentioned, you're going to be in this production of Eurydice by Matthew Aucoin, who was actually on our show and spoke about it a little. And you're part of a dual role. Tell us a little bit about that project.
I am Orpheus's double, where I am kind of like a shadow. I would say I'm his conscious, almost, it feels like, in the opera, reminding him of what good he has, and I'm the good person on his shoulder. I'm the good angel on his shoulder, reminding him of all the wonderful things.
Typecasting.
And it was
that's what it is.
Perhaps because I'm such a good person, Peter. You know, and so I'm gonna be doing this role at the opera company, and I'm looking forward to it. I originated the role at Los Angeles Opera, and I'm going to be singing. I think there are 6 performances, or perhaps no, I think there's 6 performances at the Met, of which I'm singing 2, and I think Jakub Orlinski will be singing the other 4.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That'll be interesting to work with him. I have a question though. When in the season is it? Early or late?
I think it is in. I don't know. I'm terrible with dates. I think it's in November.
Gosh, I hope it happens. I hope it happens.
I hope it does too. You know, I tell you, everybody that's in that cast, I'm sure, you know, the music from the chorus to the musicians in the pit onto the stage, we all, I'm sure, are going to be itching to get back onto the stage. And for me, it will be my debut if it ever happens. So,
well, you also
I'm looking forward to it.
Aren't you casting something else in the season?
No, not that I know of, unless somebody else has told you. I wish I were. I was supposed to be doing for this season. Right now I would be getting ready to go to New York City to begin rehearsals for Nireno and Julius Caesar.
That
was going to be my debut, was this season, and I was doing all the performances of that, and that got canceled. So I'm saddened by it, but I also know that God has a reason for everything, and I'm going to be all right. So what's for me is for me, and what's for everybody else is for them. But this is going to be great, and I'm looking forward to doing my 2 performances of Eurydice. I hope we sell it out every night on my 2 nights.
I bet you will. It's going to be exciting.
Sure.
I was curious, when in all the different kinds of music that you sing, how do they influence each other? Like, how does gospel and jazz and pop, does that influence the way you sing classical, and how does classical benefit the other stuff?
Yeah. Certainly. I mean, definitely. I think about going back to Peter's Baroque question, I mean, I feel like definitely a lot of my jazz and gospel are definitely informed. My Baroque is informed by my gospel singing because of the ornamentation. So if you ask any singer, especially any of us who grew up in the church, we were not immune to hearing riffs and runs in our church choirs, or the deacons or the deaconess or the first lady. We call the first lady the pastor's wife, or the church the first lady of the church, singing. And my first lady could really sing. So I used to, and my grandmother. So I would emulate those riffs and runs. And so definitely a lot of my Baroque music is informed by my gospel roots. I know some experts who would have a conniption if they heard me say that, but it's the absolute truth. And the reason why I say experts, because I don't believe that they're experts in anything. I personally believe that I think that we are all learning. I don't believe that there's any such thing as an expert. So that's just my own little thing. But I have my own beliefs about a lot of stuff. People are gonna think I'm crazy, but I just don't believe and I don't believe in experts. I think some people know a lot of things, but you can't tell me that my Baroque ornamentation being informed by my gospel and jazz singing is bad. And there are people who think that.
So just for those who are listening and not watching the show, John made air quotes around expert. Every time he said it, there were air quotes. I just want everyone to know.
He's a professor himself.
I am, but I tell my students, and that's the thing. I am a professor. I'm an associate professor of music at Lawrence University. And I tell my students on the very first lesson, I do not know everything, but I am learning with you your voice. And I don't want to pretend to know everything, because I don't think that anybody does. I think a good teacher or a good person in their field is always learning and figuring out how to make that thing that they specialize in. And you can call me a specialist, I'll take that. But an expert, no. I'm always learning how to dive more into that thing that I call special, which is the voice. But I don't know everything, but I'm learning.
Your students,
and that's what I always tell my students. Some of them feel lucky. Some of them probably think I'm just terrible because I'm so tough. And I am tough. I always tell people I'm tough, but I am learning. I'm learning with my kids. I'm learning their voice, because there are no voices that are the same. The instrument, the anatomy is the same, but every voice is different. Just like my face is different from Brooks, and Brooks is different from Peter. That's how different each voice is, and I will treat each voice differently. That's how I do my students.
And how long have you been at the conservatory? And do you teach a class?
I am a teacher, and I have taught in academia for 6 years. I'm finishing my 6th year. Currently, I am on sabbatical for the winter term. We're on a term here, so we have 3 terms per academic year, or you can call it quarters if you want. And I have been teaching at the Conservatory of Music at Lawrence University for 4 years. I have taught pedagogy, however you would like to pronounce it, for people who were music education majors who did not specialize in voice. And I've taught that for 2 years, and then I stopped doing it because it was difficult to try to do that and also sing. But I teach voice for music education majors, performance majors, or people who want to specialize in jazz. They come and see me for a term sometimes. And musical theater, I teach those students. One of my students, when I taught at Ithaca College, she was Mrs. Seeley on the national tour of The Color Purple. I have taught quite a few wonderful singers, and I've taught some really amazing educators, some great lawyers. So I feel really blessed.
So now I when I was in college many years ago, I remember the feeling about opera and it being a sort of a dead art form. And then for the past like 10, 20 years, it just feels like there's been this explosion of it. Are students coming into opera feeling optimistic about the field, or how are they looking at the field right now?
They are, and I think it's because they come into the school. Whenever there is an outlook on a young student that opera isn't the best art form or opera is dying, it's because they're listening to somebody who sang it. I don't particularly subscribe to that either. I believe that our art form is going to be thriving, that it is thriving. It just depends on us. It's dependent upon us. So and because because I'm doing it, I think that my students and those in our conservatory, they know that it's thriving because I'm always gone somewhere singing. So I find that the students coming into the conservatory have such high hopes for our industry and the art form and where it's going. And because I see that there is a zest for learning, and I'm excited that I get to help usher in that next generation of fantastic performers and teachers and artistic administrators and all that jazz. So they are excited. You should see them running around the conservatory trying to get to their classes on time when we are in school. Even some of them are late logging on to Zoom classes. So, but we're thriving, and I'm proud of that.
And you're teaching via Zoom now?
Well, because I'm on sabbatical, I'm not. But
I see.
When I was teaching, I was doing Zoom, and
yeah.
I was one of the colleagues on at the conservatory that was a resource to the teachers once we started teaching on Zoom, because before the pandemic, whenever I'd be on the road, that's how I was teaching. I was teaching my students on Zoom. Everybody's like, well, how are you singing all over the world and teaching your students? I was like, when I am in Singapore, I am teaching my students. When I'm in Paris, I'm teaching my students, and I was doing it on Zoom. And so now everybody knows how it's done. Some people hate it. I love it. I think because it's just like, I feel like, and it's probably because I know my students so well, but I feel like I'm right there with them. Only thing I can't do is I can't reach out and hug them, which I would love to do. My love language is touch, so I always want to give everybody a hug or something, if they allow it. So I've been really lucky to have students who embrace me and who are excited to have me as their teacher, and that allows me to be the John Holiday that you guys know. Because while I was doing the show of The Voice, I was actually still teaching.
Really?
I was.
So now, what is sort of I'm sort of thinking ahead, but what are your sessions now? Is there some new singer or someone that we should be on the lookout? I know that you sent us what your current playlist is, but
oh yeah, I love my playlist.
we'll put that on Spotify so everyone can listen in.
Some of them are bad.
Some of them are bad. So the Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto, the Adagio Sostenuto, just the one movement or the whole piece?
Yes, because that one piece, because I want for people to see what popular song today was inspired by that movement.
Right.
Do you know which piece? Do you know what song it is?
I don't know what the pop song is because I don't know my pop music. Yeah.
All by Myself by Celine Dion.
Oh my God.
It is written, it is taken, the exact movement is taken, the exact movement is the exact song that Eric Carmen wrote. He in fact credits Rachmaninoff as the composer of All by Myself.
I agree.
If I put All by Myself on there, people would never know it. But that is exactly where that song came from. So when people say that classical music and pop music are far from each other, they are not. They are not.
You gave us a lovely long list of 13, but if we could feature one right now, which of this list? Maybe someone.
I'm just kidding. I love Meg Thee Stallion's Body. Well, they don't know there's an artist on there. I mentioned Rio Suma. He has a song called All My Air. He's a brand new artist. He's an artist with whom I share the stage on The Voice.
Maybe my mind is playing tricks on me. You look just like that thief that took my sanity. Velvet skin, perfect teeth, say magnifique, so fine that you don't need to speak or use profanity. And I just wanna get to know you best, cause you be having me perplexed.
And I think his music is incredible. All My Air is a beautiful song. So that'd be one of them. And I also really love Jill Scott's All I. And Jadena is a dear friend of mine, a very, very dear friend of mine. And I love his song Tribe. So those are three that I could say.
So if you want to listen to John's playlist, we'll put it on our SoundCloud No, not SoundCloud.
Yeah,
On
or
Spotify.
whatever.
What is our list on?
And then one day you'll have a song by me to put on your SoundCloud.
Well,
When I
yeah.
promote my
Yeah,
project.
yeah. Are you a songwriter? Or are you gonna?
I am not a songwriter, but I'm working on a project right now with some pretty incredible people, like Hall of Fame writers and one of the producers who wrote and produced like all the music from The Greatest Showman and has written for Celine Dion and Adele and John Legend. I'm working with those writers and producers right now. I'm flying to New
Great.
York next week to start working on it. So
Do people know about this, or is this a total? Are we breaking news?
this is. I mean, it's not a breaking news thing.
Darn.
Because I didn't tell you their names. If I tell you their names, it would be
Spill
breaking
it.
news. I'm not going to do
Spill
that.
it.
Oh no. I can't do that yet until contracts are signed
Right.
and things like that. So, but once they are signed, oh, trust me, that I will make a huge announcement about it because it will be exciting. I'll be like CNN, this is breaking news.
Do you consider yourself to be an actor? Are you, because you've obviously done tons of opera, you've done, do you want to continue deeper, and do you do musical theater also?
I've never done musical theater, and I've never done acting other than acting on the stage for opera. And I did act, I guess, when I was a little boy in like church plays that my grandmother would write. But yeah, I want to be the fullest expression of who I am, Walker. And if that means I hope I get to be on TV again. I don't think I'll ever do reality TV again. But I would love to do something scripted. And when I die, on my deathbed, I want to know that I have done everything that I could do. And I think there is still so much to do. I want to be exhausted.
That's
So,
what it'll say in your gravestone. John, he did everything he could do.
That's it. He did.
wore himself
I
out.
want to say
He did
he
it.
did that thing. He did that thing. That's gonna be on my headstone.
Well, it's been really great having you on the show. It is. Thank you so much for really bringing our art form to the very popular platform, but also just for being yourself in public. It really is inspirational, and I knew that from seeing you, but I didn't know you would articulate it. It was really beautiful.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on our show. It's been wonderful.
Anytime.
Anytime.
I'm sorry that it took so long for me to respond. As I said, sometimes it's not because I don't want to come. Sometimes it's because I'm trying to figure out my scheduling and things like that. But you guys know, anytime that you guys want me to come on, I would be happy to come on and talk. And
You
I'm
will
happy that you
regret
saw me
saying
explain
that,
myself.
sir.
I'll be back.
No, thank you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so
Great.
much.
No problem.
Thanks.
Keep on doing what you guys are doing and inspire all the people out there to continue bringing themselves to our art form. That's what we need right now. We need everybody, and you guys are helping that. And you're helping to demystify it too. And so for that, I'm thankful.
Cool. Thank you. And thanks for listening to our show, folks. Welcome to the Happy New Year, everyone. We're looking forward to, Happy New Year. Oh, yes.
Question?
It's going to be a Happy New Year if it kills me.
Yes, it's going to be great.
But I'm really looking forward to this year, and I really hope I get to go and see you at the Met. Maybe we'll do a field trip. All of us will go.
We should, and you have to come backstage afterwards so I can meet you officially.
Awesome.
Oh,
I'll wear a
I will
mask.
remember.
I'll wear a mask.
I was going to say you. Yes, please. Thank you.
All right, we got to let the man go. Thank
Bye,
you,
you
Joe.
guys.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Hey, viewers. Could you stop what you're doing and please subscribe to our show on YouTube? That way you'll be notified of all our new shows. And please select the thumbs up symbol for our show. It's a free way to show your support. If you want to help bring opera to a new generation of listeners, one great way is to go to patreon.com and become our patron. We would like to thank The Voice, the Academy of Ancient Music, Opera Philadelphia, WQXR, and Rio Suma for permission to use their clips on this episode. This episode of the Indie Opera Podcast was recorded on Zoom with co-hosts Peter Zepp, Ashley Renee Watkins, Brooke Larimer, Walker Lewis, and our special guest, John Holliday. Our show was created with the support of associate producer Chuck Sachs, Jonathan Blaylock, PR consultant, Rosha Creon, who created our theme music, and Gregory Moomji, web correspondent. This episode was edited by Peter Zepp. Thank you for watching.